I'm author and bookstore explorer Matt Browning, and I've been visiting independent bookstores all over the U.S. and chronicling my adventures on social media for years. From the massive shops like Powell's Books in Portland to historic spots like Pennsylvania's Auto Bookstore, I've seen it all and then some. Bookstores in churches, in schoolhouses, in train cars, bookstores full of mystery books, bookstores with escape rooms, even bookstores where you can spend the night. Through it all, one thing I've heard time and again from shop owners, booksellers, and customers alike is that bookstores are magical places. So what is it about these literary havens that everyone loves so much? In the age of e-readers and online shopping, how is it that brick and mortar bookshops are on the rise? Is it the smell of old books? The friendly faces? The shop owner who can make a recommendation based on a simple request? Or is it all of that and then some? That's what I'm hoping to learn as I visit bookshops and talk to the people who build their lives around these magical places. So grab your reading list and come along. This is Bookstore Explorer. One of the most frequent pairings you'll see when visiting bookstores is books and coffee. These two things seem to go together like peanut butter and jelly. In this episode, we're in my home state of West Virginia to visit with two shops that have created the perfect marriage of books and beverages. We're starting in the capital city of Charleston, on the appropriately named Capitol Street, where new owner Dan Carlisle is working hard to preserve the legacy of a city staple, Taylor Books. The shop opened in 1995 along what is arguably the city's busiest shopping and dining district. With its vibrant exterior and eclectic vibe, it's been luring in customers who flock to it like, well, church.
And that's something that makes this shop unique, special, I think, is just that experience of like when you walk in the front door, the ceilings are 18 feet high and they're like just this brick red tin, and the smell of coffee hits you as you come in, and the store is 80 feet deep, so you see these you just walk in and it really it's church-like. It's a definite feeling when you come in, and I hear it all day, from visitors to Charleston, just like walking in. They kind of take a breath, they kind of make a comment, and so props to Anne for the layout, the design for that. The bookstore was founded in 1995 by Anne Saville. She ran it for 25 years. She had the vision. She took this derelict building which had been empty for, 10, 15 years, and just put everything that she had into it. And without her, it doesn't exist. So it's very important that she gets recognition for that, or gets credit for that. It wouldn't be here without her, and without the city of Charleston really taking it and just making it their own too, supporting it for all these years. So thankful for her for taking that risk, really, and doing such a good job with the design and just keeping it classy.
Yeah. Well, so the design of the shop, you walk in the front door and you're in what's primarily the bookstore portion, right?
Yeah.
What else will you find?
Well, the bookshop comes first. Bookshop is the most important element of the place. First and foremost, we are a bookstore. We are interested in literature. But then we've got all these other kind of things that happen here. There's a lot going on here. Focus on books. Then it quickly added a coffee shop. That became evident right away that you gotta have some snacks and drinks and stuff for people. And then again, very quickly moving into having an art space, and the building which we're in, which is a separate building from the bookstore. We just have a large opening that comes in here, but became available, so she bought it with the idea that yes, this would become an art gallery to feature regional fine art and craft. And so those three elements really, I think, make up the place: bookstore, coffee shop, art gallery.
But that's not all. While the three sections on the main level blend together seamlessly with a natural flow, if you explore far enough into Taylor Books, you'll discover even more intriguing offerings.
Yeah, we keep adding things. That's part, it's books first, but then there's just we just keep kind of adding little elements. So I don't know if it was 10 years ago, we got the beer taps and the wine, we started serving beer. And then however long ago we put in the clay studio, the pottery studio in the other basement. We added used books, and then the most recent addition to the space is the mini cine, the mini cinema, which is not actually operated by Taylor Books, but it is here in this space, and it's operated by a local nonprofit. And it's a good fit for sure, yeah.
That overall vision for the shop is something Dan has been honing since he started working at Taylor Books more than a decade ago, long before owning the place had even entered the picture.
I was excited about the idea of working in a bookshop, but that was it. It was just like, oh, it's just a part-time job.
Mm-hmm. At what point did it become something that you intended to really pursue?
I mean, I just started selling books, started working at the bookstore counter, and took to it, I think. Enjoyed it. It's a good job, difficult job, fun, new stuff every day, you know, so I just kind of jumped in, and I met Anne, and we got along well, and got along well with the customers, and just kept working for 12 years until I bought it.
And now it's paying off. Dan is keeping the Taylor Books tradition alive with a novel approach to running the shop.
It's kind of like I'm into gardening. Gardening I've done it my whole life. So I just view it as like working in the garden. So you've got your perennials, they're always kind of there, coming back. And then you've got your annuals, which you kind of place, move around from season to season. And I do sort of view it as a living thing that has to be kept alive, and so it has to be cultivated and weeded out all the time, and you got to sometimes dig up a whole chunk section and move it somewhere else, and just kind of keep things visually fresh, because people want to come in and see what's different, what's new, what's changed, and so it's a mixture of different approaches as far as book selection. You got to have the stuff that people are talking about. You got local interest stuff, which you got to have. And Charleston's tough because it's a small town. It's not a big city. There's a dwindling population, but you don't want to have the same stuff that is available at Target. Something different. So I don't know. I think one thing that I try to focus on is like international translated literature. Is something that I feel like we have a really broad selection of, a strong selection of. I want people to come in here and kind of be really like blown away by the book selection.
And let's not forget the coffee. The cafe at Taylor Books is always busy, serving up hot and cold coffee and tea drinks, fresh baked goods, and even beer and wine.
I mean, well, coffee's addictive. So that helps. You just get people hooked. That gets their feet in the door. Coffee is a great joy of life, as well as reading. It's wonderful. I mean, Saturday morning, coffee, newspaper, book. That's what more could one ask for?
Good question. Taylor Books does indeed seem to have it all. A vast selection of new and used books, local art, live music, an indie theater, and a popular cafe.
Well, that's good. So here's my philosophy here with this particular bookstore. Well, one of my philosophies is basically it's a party every day, and the party starts at 7 a.m., and I, or the people who are working here, are here to host and make sure that everybody is like comfortable, having a good time, getting everything they need. And that's kind of one way that I see it. Like, that's, it's not here for us, it's here for the people. It's their space. And so that's what we're trying to do is just make it a space that people feel comfortable in. And so far we've been successful.
Taylor Books is the state's only shop that blends books with fresh brewed coffee. Next, we head west to check out one of the region's newer additions, Cicada Books and Coffee.
We're here in Huntington, West Virginia's Central City District, a neighborhood lined with cafes, antique shops, boutique stores, and a cool mother-daughter-owned bookshop and cafe that really stands out from the crowd. Let's head inside and see what's brewing.
Don Hilbert and her daughter, Katie Norman, opened Cicada Books and Coffee in 2018. And while they aren't the city's only place to shop for used books, they're definitely its most eclectic and most fun. Start there. You're a mother and daughter duo who decided to open a bookshop. How did that come about?
Well, I have lived on this street for several years, and I walked by this building for about 2 years thinking to myself, you know what, I should buy that building and open a bookshop. And finally I did.
Had you worked in bookshops before? Was that sort of your forte, or was this brand new territory for you?
No, but it had been in my mind for many, many years. I had thought about it off and on for maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, my parents you guys were big readers growing up, and we had collections of books that had been purchased because you wanted to start a bookstore when you moved to Huntington.
That's
and
right.
it never happened.
That's right.
Back then. So it's kind of always been something we tossed around as an idea, something we always thought might happen.
and happen it did. Katie and Don set out to create a space that was inviting and welcoming to everyone, and a place that felt natural, hence the name. So let's talk about the name and the concept, Cicada Books and Coffee. How did that come about?
Okay, Katie, you take this one.
Well, we brainstormed names for a long time. We had, huge lists. We made polls on the internet. We asked our family and friends. We discussed it for so long. We really just wanted something that would be memorable, something that would be evocative, something that we could sort of theme a store around, something that we could decorate, sort of following the theme. I think the one that we almost chose was Orange Books, and we decided to go with Cicada instead because we thought it fit the sort of biological nature theme that we wanted to do in terms of how we set up the store, how we decorated.
Well, let's talk about the decoration. Even as you're walking down this street, now you're in the middle of a arts district here in Old Central City in Huntington. But as you're walking down this street, you stand out. It's bright turquoise blue. Was that the color of the building, or was that your vision?
Of course it was not the color of the building, and a couple of people on the street were not exactly happy about it, because the theme that had been here for the exteriors was a sort of a frontier Old Central City theme. But it hadn't been refreshed in a long time, and I had been overseas. I had been on a trip to Europe, and in Paris all the buildings were painted. And so when I came back, that was about a year before we decided to do this, I said, I don't care, I'm painting the building blue. So.
And you opened in 2018.
That's right.
So we're a few years into this now. Have those naysayers come around?
Oh, I think so. In fact, when we first opened, someone came in about a few weeks after we had opened and said, you needed a good anchor store down here, sort of like the center of the street, and I'm glad you're it.
So you're now the anchor store, at least according to that one person.
That's right. That's
But
right. We like to think we are.
Yeah.
As I travel around to these bookstores, that's what I see, the indie shop becoming the anchor. Was that your vision? What were you hoping customers would find when they came into Cicada?
Well, yeah, I think definitely the idea of being an anchor, we talked about the idea of sort of third places, of community spaces where people can get together, meet others, talk, think, that are not home and not workplaces, thinking about third places in the community. And I think that we just really wanted to make something that people like us would come into and say, wow, this is cool. Like, I like being here. And I think that we've succeeded at that. It's always my favorite thing when we have customers come in and they're like, oh, this is cute. But my friend Jill, you would never be able to get her out of here. They have an ideal customer in mind. And that's really who we're targeting.
Cicada's layout is as eclectic as the books on its shelves. The cafe section at the front of the shop leads into a large selection of mostly used titles covering all the genres, from fiction and nonfiction to children's books, gardening, cooking, classics, and regional titles. And it's all supplemented with a rotating schedule of community events that keep customers coming back, from board games and movie nights to a knitting group and the ever-popular book club.
We have done a lot in the 3 years that we've been open. Some of our more popular ones are book clubs, of course, and we have a foodie book club that has been running since probably shortly after we opened, and it's very popular. We have I forget how many, but hundreds of followers that follow the book club that don't always attend, but that apparently are reading the books and keeping up with club activities, things like that.
We've also worked on having some events that are targeted towards the LGBT community. I'm gay, and so that's just something that I felt that Huntington didn't have enough of. That we have a handful of gay bars, but a lot of the events that are pride themed are alcoholic, and so having things at a bookstore that's a little more open to younger people who are not partiers, people who are sober, I thought would be really fun, and so that's something we've focused on, just trying to get people from the community in and talking to each other.
And let's not forget the impressive menu of coffees and teas. Now tell me about your menu. What kind of things do you serve? Where do you get your coffee? Things like that.
All of our coffee is local, so we actually we have a dark roast. Our espresso is from a roaster in Athens, Ohio called Dirty Girl, that we picked at least partly because of the name, but we also we really like their espresso. And then we get our medium roast. Our house blend is from Ignition Roasters, and they're actually a Huntington local company. So we really wanted to do that in terms of coffee, find people close by, because this area is starting to have a little more of a sort of a coffee community coming up. We also have a selection of teas from Davidson's, and that's actually one of our more popular things. We sell London Fogs that are wildly popular. People really like tea lattes. So that's one of our main things that we do other than coffee.
From the popular coffee and tea menu to a wide selection of books and community events, Cicada is continuing to find its place in Huntington, and it's apparently working. As we were filming, we met Tammy Lang, a customer who grew up in the shop long before it was Cicada Books and Coffee, and she was excited to see what's happening in the historic spot.
I can't remember exactly. When I come back to Huntington, I always try to come over to 14th Street in Central City, but I noticed that they had opened this, and I couldn't wait to come in, and so I was just thrilled that they had done something so not just progressive, but just to keep it alive, to keep it going.
And keep it going they will. Both Cicada Books and Coffee and Taylor Books are perfect examples of bookstore cafes that are brewing up something special.